Okay, so good afternoon, and I'm talking here from Tampa, Florida today, and one more session of Grandma's March. And today we have a very special guest, Narayani Gaia. And welcome, Narayani. I'm so happy that you're here with us today. And
Thank you.
yeah, and it is amazing how everything and always that I start is like, how are we here today connected and why we are here today? And it's like all these things that I've been doing through this project, connecting to my grandmas, they have been connecting me to different people. And I was telling you, like, this project started with Shakti Leadership through Nilima, and I think it was last week or the week before, she sent me an email that something you wrote about your grandmother's medicine, and of course, you're going to talk a little bit about that. So yeah, she
Mhm.
sent me that. I said, well, I have to reach out, and she needs to tell this story here in our event. So that's why we're here. I guess our grandmas are connecting us. So welcome.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to meet you, Monica, and be here. And I was happy to hear from Nalima. I hadn't heard from her in many years, and what a great opportunity to connect and honor all these different grandmothers. Wonderful project that you're doing. It's really
Mhm.
awesome.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you for accepting the invitation. And before we go, I just want to tell everybody a little bit of what I know about you, and then you can tell us the story, because the idea is that you share a little bit about your story and how your grandmothers and or your ancestral feminine side has inspired in all that you're doing and the woman, amazing woman that you are today. But I know that you're a healer, you're a mentor guide, and uh, since I guess 2002, you had a profound spiritual awakening, and since that, you have been helping people remember that spiritual identity at a deepest level. And you are also transformational coaching and works with embodied meditation and mindfulness, and you support like intuitive and empathic women on that spiritual path, to work with their energy and turn their sensitivity into superpowers. And I love that. So they can heal their past, and then we go again. Maybe that is an ancestral healing as well, and bring it fully to the present and manifest for the future, or that rooted in love. So I love the way you put it and what you're doing in the world. So yeah, now it's with you, and tell us your journey and whatever you want to share about your beautiful grandmothers and how they inspire you.
Thank you. Well, yeah, so I have two grandmothers, but I'll start with the one that I wrote about earlier this month
Yes.
in time for it to reach your ears. Um, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so, the interesting thing about my spiritual path and my grandma's is that I really had to leave my home family environment to be able to come back and appreciate them. And I feel like that's normal to like grow up, have some experiences. Some women, I don't have children personally because I was studying healing and doing all these other things when people were having babies. But it's like that kind of thing when women have babies and then you appreciate your mom, right?
It is true.
So I feel like, right. So then I feel like I had to really go pretty wide in my curiosity after finishing college that I somehow managed to get through in my early 20s and started traveling and went on a trip across the country, this United States in the 90s, and found myself starting to meet healers. And I was brought to the Hopi Navajo Dene Reservation, where I got to sweat with the grandmothers there in when I was about 22. And I'm now going to be 50 in a week. So a lot of seeds were planted for the prayers of healing for the world and for healing my own ancestral line in my early 20s. And what I found was, as I kind of followed my seeking heart and my spiritual urgings and my emotional yearnings to understand and to find purpose and meaning, and like a lot of women, my healing journey really was driven by heartbreak,
Mm.
you know, and like longing for equanimity and for justice. I was raised by a feminist mother who was an activist in the 70s. So I had a strong impulse for freedom, and then for things I didn't really understand. But when I started meeting Indigenous women and I started studying about Indigenous culture, and then of course, not of course, but because your audience doesn't know me, but studying yoga also helped me to answer some of the deeper questions that I didn't feel like were connecting the dots when I grew up around the nature of consciousness, about the mind, about how things work, where they come from. So I went into spiritual study to find answer to life's biggest questions, so to speak. And one of the things that I found is I met different culture, like elders and teachers from various traditions. I also studied African music and Taoism. And I consider myself a rainbow person because I connect to all different cultures, and it's happening now. We're all merging. All this wisdom is coming quickly to us. It's an era where we're like, it's like butterfly, it's like hummingbird medicine, where there's like, you get nectar from here, nectar from there, and we're coming together. And those of us on the spiritual journey, a lot of us find this in these times, that there's all these lineages that are now merging, and as humanity's merging and races and culture are merging through love and through creating new ancestral lines of mixed races, and as people are spiritually waking up, and of course we're in an urgency for the planet, so people are very driven to find answers to help save the planet, to find meaning in life. And then we have COVID, so that's its own dark night of the soul. And you spoke earlier about the emergence of, like, how can we birth and create new, which is really, I think, what healing does when you're on a healing journey, right? It takes you into the discovery of, like, things just don't feel right, and they start to get loud. And if you can address them, you can clear the way for the future. And so what I found as I started to seek and read and study and go to healing school and yoga school and herb school and doula school, and having my own awakening, Kundalini wake up and all that stuff, was that all these traditions and the wisdom pointed me back to my own lineage, that especially the Indigenous, which were pointing back to, you honor your family, is in the 10 Commandments. I mean, it's like, it's always been there, but something inside of me knew that my work in the world was not to separate or alienate myself from where I came. So I never had that separation from my parents. And I was raised by very passionate, liberal Jewish New York parents. And so they were very much valuing education. They had a lot of love for me. I always felt in the white privilege of being provided for and supported. Even when I had to go out on my own and make my own money, I still felt like there was a deep caring and a deep respect. Can you hear me? It says that it's okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So during that time in my early 20s of my awakening was actually a time when I really started appreciating my grandparents, right? And I knew that as my grandma was getting older, this is my mom's mom that I wrote about, so I'll start with her, that she, it was the end. So I had been in massage school. I started massaging her. She was in the hospital. I was like giving essential oils on her body, and I was like spritzing her and bringing vibes. And she was like, oh my God, no one's ever, she was so happy. And she had been through so much. And I do want to share, because you want to hear, I want to share about her story more. But it was such a pleasure to be able to start to be an adult, and give to her in that way. And then when I was 31, she transitioned. But what happened was, when my grandma transitioned in 2002, I had just gone through my big awakening. So my Kundalini woke up. And for me, what it was like my perception really opened because I'd been working with spiritual teachers for about 9 years. And so I started seeing energy. I started having in and out of body experiences at sunrise. I started to have my extrasensory perceptions really were opening. I was already doing healing professionally for about 5 years, teaching yoga, all that, meditating, prayer work and everything. So it was really opened up, and cleansing and fasting. So when my grandma transitioned, she started coming to me. This is something I didn't write about in that write-up that you wrote, but I'll share with you because you're a spiritual sister, and I'm assuming the women in this project are interested in, right, in ways of
Yes, yes.
the soul. So she started coming to me in dream time. I mean, literally, I would see her light body, and she would give me messages, and we'd be like at a family, in my dream, we'd be at like a family event, and nobody would see her, but I would see her in the dream,
Yeah.
and she would just give me like, she helped me, because when you go through Kundalini awakening, there could be a lot of confusion. You're
Mhm.
trying to understand how things work, and you have these different parts of you that have different perspectives, and until they can all get in a council and all communicate, there could be feel like a lot of confusion.
Yes.
So you know that. So she really started helping me spiritually, and then as I continued to get older, I started noticing how my inclinations were so much like her, my grandma Marie.
Marie.
How the way Marie Rogat,
Yes.
and the way that I was drawn to nature and camping and dancing. I know I wrote about the dancing part, was like her. And that piece about the dancing, if you want, I can talk about that a little, because that was the thing that you saw that you read. Yeah, was that, she started this one. She was a Pisces, so she really loved everybody, and she survived things like polio, breast cancer,
Mhm.
that had her tested her strength, and she was born, I think, 1917, about 1917.
Mhm.
Hope that's right. And
Makes
she
sense.
survived a lot. Yeah, she survived a lot. And I remember one thing, she wanted to be a teacher, and she was too short
Oh,
to be a teacher.
too short.
They said she was like 4'9" or 5'0", right? She
Yes.
was too short. Like, that kind of thing wouldn't happen today. But if we look back and see
Oh.
like how our grandmothers lived, we can appreciate how far women have come, right?
Mm.
So that, because I'm short, but it was like, I would never imagine that would be a thing in this time, So anyway, but she survived a lot, and she started her dance school when she was 16 in Brooklyn. And I guess my dad and her knew each other from Temple. They're Jewish, so they knew each other. And so he really wanted to meet her. So somebody told him to go ask for, or he thought of it himself, to go ask her for dance lessons. I don't think he wanted dance lessons. Like, that's not what he went for. But they started dancing, and then they danced till she was like 80,
Wow.
because she got into square dance. Yeah. And she used to make all their clothes, and they had these matching outfits, and they started going to powwows because they were camping. They camped in all 50 states in their motorhome,
Wow.
and they would go to these square dancing conventions, and grandpa's like Eagle Scout, like Boy Scout, Eagle Scout events. And they would always bring like turquoise and like these indigenous things. And
Mm.
there was something with them that they met Native people, and I never knew Native people growing up. And if I did, I didn't know they were Native. So that wasn't part of my upbringing. But they would bring these things in. And later in my life, I met a man who ended up being my partner before he passed away, who was Native. And there's something really interesting about him, the Chief Elkman. And there's something very interesting about his parents, and he was 12 years older than me. So about his parents and my grandparents. And even before I knew he was going to transition, there was this feeling that his ancestors and my ancestors were connected. What I didn't realize was that the ancestors were very close to him, and that our year together that we had was the last year of his life. So looking back on it, I could see that they were kind of calling him. But there was this thing about his mother, my mother, his parents, they were the same age as my grandparents, his parents. He was one of 19 children. Okay, so,
Wow.
and somehow I feel like they met. I also had one of my cousins who's an intuitive psychic introduced me to his brother 10 years prior. So there was this family connection. And his mom passed within days of my grandma's birthday, and my grandma passed within days of his mother's birthday, on the same Pisces and like February and September. So there's all this synchronicity, and I really felt them. And he would say, we need to get back to the ways of our grandparents. And during that year, he helped me also to return my grandma's ashes back to water.
Oh, wow.
And because you're not supposed to hold them for a very long time. And there's this whole communing with my whole family of letting go of my grandma. And so what I found is that over the years, even after she transitioned, I had all these ways that she guided my life, and that she taught me, and that she was with me. But there came a time also on the other side that there were things she couldn't answer for me.
Mm.
So like I would ask her about some things about relationship, and she was like, I didn't have to go through that, like I married there were things that, but in certain dream time, she could come back and show me things that she didn't show me when she was in body.
Mm.
So depending on your development, on your own level of awakening, and also I was going through all these veils were lifting when she transitioned. So depending on our level of our own perception and our own inner work that we do, are we able to communicate with our grandmothers on the other side? So that's just a little thing. I don't know. That was a lot. That was a whole mouthpiece. I don't know if you want to talk about something specific, but
No, that
that's
makes
some of.
so much sense. And I just wanted to say the way I came through this project, and I have mentioned it here in Grandma's March event, is that
Yeah.
I was in an airplane in the middle of a storm, and it was very scary, and it was a moment of desperate. And in the middle of all that, like it come this calm, and I felt the presence. And they literally said, now you have to bring the grandmother's message to the world. So after that, it's like, okay, what I have to do, and I started this journey because of that. So I completely understand what you're saying, because they find ways to communicate. Yes. Especially
Right.
like that, or dreams, and yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. She was really loving, and she donated and gave and gave and gave and gave and gave to everyone, and volunteered, and served everyone. And they had things that I understood from different cultures that kind of made sense,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe she didn't understand spiritually, but maybe now she does. Like for example, their last home was 108, and we know in Hinduism 108 is the number of completion. And then they moved into like a old age home, kind of a place where they were fully taken care of, where she lived the last 3 months. My grandpa continued to live another 8 years or so, but they moved into 108 again,
Wow.
and it was like, yeah, it was like, okay, like she is complete, I feel like she had a completion, because you don't know, like we have so many lifetimes of incarnation.
Mm.
And even when we go the other side, we continue to evolve. Even if we don't come back and incarnate, we still, from what my elders and particularly my native teachers teach me, is like, we continue to go into other dimensions in the star teachings as well. So I feel like she completed in a way. And the fact that like me as her granddaughter, my mother's daughter, like my matriarchal line, doesn't have any children, it feels like there's like some kind of completion that we're doing,
Beautiful.
And spiritually, there's like some things that, like she gave so much, but I think she had some resentment a little bit, because she gave so much. which was what was expected of that generation, was you do everything for your husband kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And I found that I understand that pattern in myself, and my dance is also to help evolve that as a teacher. And for my niece and my nephew, it's not my children, but it's in consciousness, to help to heal that line, to hold space for finding that balance, like that women are learning in this time between that giving and receiving, you know,
Yeah.
so that we can be filled and give from overflow. And, you know, again, all these other cultures have helped me to weave my own ancestral understanding. And I feel like that's important, especially those of us who go out to other traditions to find answers, that we apply that. I know that's what you're doing by
Yes,
creating something new.
it is true.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm. So what about your other grandma? You also said there is a special connection to this other grandma that you
Oh goodness.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So from my grandma Marie, I feel like I learned all my passion and gardening and um like wanting to work with natural life, having natural lifestyle, being drawn to native culture, dance.
Dance.
I
Yeah.
wrote about, I've been studying world dance, belly dance, West African, all dance from the diaspora, Brazilian dance since my early
Oh,
20s,
how beautiful.
and dance and drumming. And it's really helped me open up my body. And I was kind of earthy. I wasn't a ballerina. I was a gymnast, but I had arthritis when I was a kid. So I had to stop, and finding African dance and more ceremonial dances helped me really stay connected to the earth. And the fact that she was a square dancer. Anyway, so there was the dance and the earth connection. Now my other grandma, and this is kind of one of these things that I feel like it's kind of funny because she's totally opposite.
I love
So
it. Yeah.
totally opposite. And this is like my own brain, like my own duality has been to integrate these parts of both of my families and the different messages that I got from my mom's side and my dad's side, right? So my other grandma just transitioned this year. Name was Zelda Golland. And there's a lot of medicine. She was 103 and a half
Mm.
and a half. And I attribute that to not just good genes and a fiery, passionate spirit, but she was really well taken care of by my aunt, by my dad's sister, my godmother. So I have to like acknowledge that, because when you're well taken care of, you can thrive. And especially, you interviewed some people connect to native traditions. I know Grandma Jyoti, who's a big advocate of native culture, indigenous culture,
Yes.
that, it's important to recognize that not everybody has resources to be well taken care of, or lives in communities where they have access to healthy food and heat and all the things that we need to live a long life. So I just want to recognize that my grandma lived to be 103 and a half, was a privileged white elder who was very well taken care of, whose daughter had the resources to take care of her. They were a doctor. She's married to a doctor. Anyway, I want to just honor that, not to shame anyone, just to name that, because I
Yeah.
think we have a long way to
That's
go
important.
to take care of all the women. All the grandmothers deserve to, everyone deserves to be taken care of.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of the grandmother's prayer. As someone who doesn't have children, I really relate with grandmothers. And when my chief was here, when he was alive, he was a great grandpa. And because we were together, he was like, "You're a great grandma now." So like when I was 47, he was like,
I love it. Yeah.
"You're a great grandma." So I'm like, "I'm a little great grandma. I feel like everyone's my children." It's like how I feel inside. But so this year, my grandma Zelda, and she was the icon. She's an from the Lower East Side of New York, if you've ever seen the archetype. And she cooked, and she's passionate, and she's has an opinion, and she has her lipstick and her hair's done and her heels and her nails, and she's a diva and a Leo. The other one's like a Piscean, feeling, creative, generous, loves everybody. This one is like Leo Queen.
I love it.
So she was amazing, and I did get to get my hands on some of her recipes. And
Wow.
as I've gotten older, I've found that in a lot of ways, because I'm very connected to fire. Both my parents are fire signs. I'm a fire sign. That, yeah, I could see myself really becoming, in a lot of ways like her, in that I love to cook for all my friends. I feel like I could feel her spirit in the last 5 years, like the Jewish grandmother spirit, the unapologetic, passionate, expressive, love, like the fierce love, like the no bullshit, direct. And also she was very spiritual.
Mm.
And that came to, she was Jewish, and she would pray every Friday, Shabbat candles, and pray for us. And so she just had that spirit inside of her,
Oh,
and she lost her husband at 35, very young.
yeah.
And yep. And she also fell in love when she was very young, so like 14. And then her husband, she said, waited. So my grandpa Julius, so they waited until she was 18 to get married. And then she conceived my dad on her wedding night.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, really special. So my dad has this real innocence to him and this real raw, fiery nature, kind of like her.
Yeah.
And he lost his dad at 18. So my grandma was 35. So then when I lost my love, nobody told her, because we didn't want her to know, because it was a year of her 100th birthday, which was almost 4 years ago. And a year later, I got to spend a week with her, and I got to tell her, and she gave me a very powerful message, which was about, because I was still grieving at that time. So she said, if I could go back, I wouldn't wait to fall in love. I would have gone out and had fun. And it was very powerful, because I don't know if you've had a loss like that, but for anyone who's lost people that they love, a partner, the grief is so deep because you didn't break up. It's not like you chose to not be with that person, or a heartbreak.
Mm.
It's like the closure is in God's time, and not in your conscious choosing, or his conscious choosing for that matter. But at the same time, spiritually, we understand that we're choosing everything. So that has brought me great freedom. But having that also happened to my grandma.
I know. Wow, what a connection.
That
Wow.
Yeah. And then having her tell me, when she was 101,
Wow.
to go out and live my life, it was such a powerful healing for me, because I can see that the love, I mean, I barely know you, but I'm sharing with you the most intimate things, because you're asking about grandmas. So this is what happens, right? So what happens when women talk about grandmothers?
It is true.
Yeah.
This is what
It's like,
the
it just comes out.
where it is.
Yeah. And I'm very transparent, and I do my best to respect my family. And if anyone in my family is watching this, I pray this doesn't offend you, that it's okay that I share. But this is my story, so I get to tell my story.
Yeah.
So the fact that she had that is another thing that was a pattern from my grandma, that then I could see could be my pattern. So if I hold like, oh, I had that love, like right now I'm still single, but there's a closure ceremony this year of 4 years. And I feel like there's something about my own connection with the culture, which is a 4-year ceremony where you close, it's like a grieving cycle. And with Dakota people, ceremonies are 4 days, 4 years, that it's important that I really let everything go, to be open to be in love again, to not just for myself, not just because my partner would want it, but also for my ancestral line, because my grandma didn't let herself have that, because in those days, what she told me was that she felt like she was dirty,
Right.
and that she couldn't go out.
She couldn't, right?
She couldn't in 1950.
Wow.
Or so. 30, let's see, my dad's 37, then 40 in the late 40s, right?
Wow.
So like, I know that is like something I have to really pray with and work hard with, especially because my love with my beloved was so great. He was a great leader, and we were twin flames. So it's very tricky to match that love. So I get that feeling, and I know that it has to be like a glass shattering prayer work Otherwise, I'll be like, oh, I'll just be a community sister and be alone,
No.
And so it's interesting how our grandmothers also give us a chance, if we're doing spiritual work and honoring them, to create new ways and not just take the good medicine, but also take the struggles that they've had and then take a stand for the world in a new way and for ourselves in a new way. And then when we do that for ourselves, we do the world invite, and we can be in relationship to hold a new paradigm, And it's really amazing to see that, like with my niece, who's very magical. She's very gifted. She's an indigo. She's a seer. She's 20, and I've been tracking her since she was 7 and reading crystals and, like helping her to make sure she's staying in track with her gifts and
Connected.
connected and healing, yeah. And then you just learn, like the grandmothers wait, you have to come to them and ask them. So even though I'm not a grandmother, like as I enter now, I'm going to be 50 in 1 week, I get to be like, okay, I'm preparing for this next phase. How can I not chase down everyone with everything I think they need to know, but continue to stay open in grace and like become an awakened, compassionate version of myself that learned something.
Yes.
That contributes something new, that continues to contribute some new ways of being, for the world. So there's some things I've learned.
And I just wanted to mention that and honor that, because as you, I don't have children. I just have 2 nephews, beautiful nephews. And during this event, I met this amazing woman. Her name is Heather Price, and she's in Australia. And she's also a spiritual teacher, and she's a grandma of her own. She has already a grandson and a granddaughter. And one thing that I ask her is like, how can we, those that we don't have children or we are not grandmothers biologically, how can we play that role? And she said, well, the best example is to be an auntie, because that's the way to play that role, that you can give that love, you can be playful, you can pass the wisdom that you have. So we all, in a way, we can play the role of the grandmother, and you're so ready for that. And I feel it, because I feel the same. It's like I do that role of the auntie, but it goes beyond, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I also have adopted nieces and nephews,
Yes.
that I love, that are like my closest friends' children, that really value me as auntie. They're like, Auntie Narayani. I'm like, let's go, and
I know.
yeah, I'm gonna go tomorrow, and I'm like, will you guys help me make like the project for the kids, because I have all these kids coming too. We're having a celebration for my birthday, and like, I want to do something for the children. And kind of the older I get, the more I appreciate those children. The more I clean out my own heart. I'm like, oh man, kids are everything.
They are amazing. They connect us to things that are like magical, right? And we start to believe again in things that we forgot or got disconnected. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And they give you a chance to love and learn, and they're so innocent and willing. And if they're treated with enough care, you just see them blossoming, and life is beautiful.
I know. And that's so juicy. It sounds so good. And we all need to connect with that, especially as women. We need it. We need that.
Nurturing. Yeah. The ability to nurture.
So important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just like, I forgot about time, and we have been talking, and I love your story and the story of how your grandmas inspire you, and now that you're bringing that, how can we create the new and also pass it to the children, on how can we play that role of the grandmother. I would love you also to, like, from your work, what you do, how you help other women, give us like a message for the women out there that I know you're helping so much, and your beautiful work that you're doing. Anything you feel like telling us, especially in this month that we're honoring women.
Yeah, right. Let's see, what would be important? What's a valuable thing? Well, community is everything for women. So the women's way is the way of the circle. We come into this world through the circle. So maybe I'm not the first woman to mention that. I'm definitely not the first woman to mention that, but I meant in your event. I meant in your event. So women's ways are the ways of the circle. And I feel like there's rich inner work. A lot of the work that I do with women at Awaken Life School, and we're actually starting a really fun like moon circle thing this spring that we're going to play with for a few months, and the mentees that I train and in the embodiment work. We really work to clear up the pieces of ourselves that are competitive or jealous with other women. So I feel like, you know, again, I'm not probably not the first in this series to even talk about that, but that work is very muy rico. It's very rich because what happens is you start to dismantle the parts of your own nervous system that are programmed to be in fight or flight. And working with Mother Earth really helps with this, because it helps when you can ground, then it helps you to stabilize your nervous system. And so when we work with the energy of dissolving the jealousy or the and really notice when that comes up for you, and do practices to breathe, or do ceremony to let it go, or do your prayers and intentions to ask spirit to help you, or simply to have difficult conversations with women by saying, I feel this and I don't want to, you know, really owning what comes up for you when you're comparing yourself to other women, I think is the biggest work that women can do, because it does lead us to be into our hearts in a way that we can be in unconditional love, not just for women, but then for men. And then we don't need to compete with the men, because I feel like when women stop needing to compare and compete with men, there's room for the men to be men. And for those who are non-binary and associate as men and women and are weaving together the genders, simply learning to dissolve your jealousy towards anyone and your competition and comparison is a way to soften into the embodiment of your soul, really, so that you're not because when there's other there and I'm here, and there's a split within ourselves towards them, and we love here but we don't love there, that affects your own nervous system and affects your own ability to digest energy and digest life's experiences. So when we're out of fight or flight and we're in rest and digest, we can integrate even all the like sound bites and all the things happening are hard to digest these days, all the different perspectives. But when your nervous system is, when you're nurtured and well cared for, and you don't need to be entitled, privileged to care for yourself, to get enough sleep, to drink it. Hopefully you have access to good, clean water, you know, drinking water, and eat mostly fruit, you know, eat tons of fruits and vegetables in your diet. You know, you can have a healthy, high functioning body. And from there, then having difficult conversations becomes easier, and you start to bring all your power back to you instead of giving it away to things and other people that are not for you to control. We start to break out of codependency.
Yep.
And then we evolve really quickly into a co-created sovereign matrix where we all get to show up as ourselves, bring peace. So that's my long-winded one piece of advice.
Oh, I love it. And yeah, and I think this is what is so beautiful also, what I'm discovering through this event and connecting with amazing women like you, how much we can co-create together and collaborate, and you know, and help each other, just complementing, because at the end we have the same inside, but each of us just show it in a different way, or each of us
Yeah.
have our own mission, but we can just co-create and support each other and help each other. And
Yeah.
that's, yeah, and that is so beautiful, because instead of just fighting for things, or, you know, being jealous of things, just like, yeah,
Yeah.
help each
Yeah.
other.
And fighting to be heard, and fighting in the world for yourself to be heard and be seen,
Competing. Mm.
and competing. Like, no, I can't share about this because, you know, like cross promoting and creating digital products is is a great way. When I first did my first summit in 2015, it was, it helped me move through that, because I was like, well, if I'm promoting you, then I'm not promoting. It was actually a little bit before that. I had a friend who I was creating projects with, and I noticed that in myself. And the thought is that somebody could by me promoting you, it's taking away from my work. But the truth is that we're all drawn to the things that we're drawn to and the people that we're drawn to. And when we hold space for each other to show up and express ourselves, then we have an opportunity to attract what that is. But it's also important that as you heal that in yourself, you get really clear on what you want. And this is what we train with in the school, these different layers, because they often shift in layers, like the layers of the onion. So as you get clear in what you want, then you could communicate your wants and needs without needing to argue for them. You can let go of unspoken expectations because you're communicating your wants and your needs. You can have healthy boundaries because you know very clearly what you don't want, and you don't have to argue with God about it. You can simply say, yeah, this is what this works, this doesn't work, and you could stay calm and you can land with people. Yeah. Okay. Are we at time?
Yeah.
Well, be talking.
So where can people find you? Just tell us, and because the amazing work you do, we have to spread it out there.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the help in getting the work out. So they can go to my website, narayanigaia.com, and I have a free gift. So you could go narayanigaia.com/free gift, which is right now the free gift is the 12 days of manifesting affirmations, which are basically the 12 sacred themes that I'm writing my book on. But the affirmations are, to start to get your mind around the thoughts that you want to create. The work is really a lot deeper than just affirmations, but if you sign up for the series, I teach and talk about that as well. This spring in 2021, we're going to have a 5-day challenge on a manifesting challenge and healing challenge. And then we're starting a special group, Awaken Life Tribe Sisterhood. So I have a podcast that's on, you can follow my podcast as well. And that's on like iTunes and everywhere, called Awaken Life Radio. But if you just go to narayanigaia.com, you can check out everything there and get on my Instagram. It's Gaia Narayani, and join our free Facebook group or sign up for a challenge and get a free gift.
Perfect. Beautiful. So join Narayani and her beautiful work. And thank you. Thank you. It was a blessing having you here today.
You're welcome, Monica. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you to Nalima.
Oh yeah, thanks Nalima, for sure, for connecting us in this beautiful way, and to our grandmothers as well, because they were the ones that really did it. Yes.
Long live the grandmothers.
Beautiful. Have a great evening and rest of the day, and we will be connected for sure.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you.